This show is brought to you in part by viewers like you who joined a Patreon or become YouTube members. Thank you. And if you could, hit the like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content.
So the next month, I think, is going to be interesting because we're going to really start to get the groundwork for what's going to be out there about the Cleveland Browns during the beginning of free agency and the beginning of a league new year. And the draft, right? I think last year, the owners' meeting is where we started to hear about the conversations, or that we confirmed that the conversations between Cleveland and Jacksonville had started about the Travis Hunter trade. The combines, where we start to hear names that the Browns might be interested in free agency and in the draft, and also with trades. This is an important time to keep your ear to the ground of what's happening. So what have I been hearing from people that I trust about the Cleveland Browns and what they might be doing? Now, the last time I did a video like this, I talked about the Browns' interest in Chris Olave, which is still out there. Certainly the Browns are interested in a young wide receiver who has significant upside, right? I think there is a belief that what you could get with a trade with the 24th pick might be more valuable than what you can get straight up. That being said, I don't necessarily think that the 24th pick is guaranteed to go so the Browns can go and trade for a wide receiver. I think there are a lot of options there. The ones we have heard are Chris Olave and Marvin Harrison Jr. I think somebody like Marvin Mims makes some sense to be in there, but I have not heard anything about Marvin Mims being somebody that the Browns are interested in. But if you're just looking at the archetype of wide receivers that they're looking for, right? These are primarily guys who could play on the boundary so that Jerry Jeudy can move inside to the slot, is what I would presume is the thinking there. And if that's the case, that they're looking for boundary type wide receivers, then, Romeo Doubs in free agency makes sense. A guy like Marvin Mims, I think, makes sense if you envision him as a boundary guy like I do. And then you have, the names we've been talking about, Chris Olave and then Marvin Harrison Jr. Now let's talk about Marvin Harrison Jr. because there's been a lot of smoke out there about a potential Marvin Harrison Jr. trade. In a similar way that, and it's odd that we're all hearing this smoke about specifically Ohio State wide receivers, because during the trade deadline, the big rumor was Garrett Wilson. So whatever it is, maybe the Browns like to shop at Ohio State for their wide receivers. And if that's something that the Browns like to do, you know who to keep an eye on in this class, right? We're talking about Carnell Tate, who's coming out of Ohio State. So Marvin Harrison Jr., we've heard the most rumors about at this point, him potentially becoming a Cleveland Brown. I wonder how likely this is, because yes, I think it is true that the Browns are extremely interested in somebody like Marvin Harrison Jr. I think if you just look at it logically, if you just read the tea leaves on it, it makes sense that the Browns would be interested in Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, the Cleveland Browns want guys who fit their timeline. Marvin Harrison Jr. is 23 years old. I think people lose track of that. Marvin Harrison Jr. is the same age, if not younger, than Shedeur Sanders, right? He's the same age, if not younger, than Fernando Mendoza. He is the age of an older draft prospect in this year's class. He's 23. It feels like he's so much older than that because we've gone through 2 eras of Ohio State football since when he's been there, but he's only 23 years old. And he was one of the most impressive wide receiver prospects we had seen up to that point, but when he was eligible for the draft. So if you're the Browns and you're saying, hey, we still think Marv can be a high-level player. We don't feel like the utilization was great in Arizona, which I think you can make a great argument for. And that if you utilize him better, he'll be closer to his potential. There's no player in this draft class who, coming out of college, had the scouting, well, not the scouting reports, but the scouts is high on him as Marvin Harrison Jr., right? Like if Marvin Harrison Jr. had stayed in college up until this point and had come out this year, he would definitely be a top 5 pick. So if you can get him with the 24th selection, some people are going to see that as a win. Now, I think the Browns, from what I hear, are going to be willing to throw maybe a player into that pot as well to sweeten it for Marvin Harrison Jr. But I do think that they are legitimately interested in Marvin Harrison Jr. Whether they get the deal done, I don't know. Nothing's close, right, or imminent or anything like that. But I do think that they are very interested in Marvin Harrison Jr. That is a name that keeps popping up. How they might acquire him, I think they'll get a little creative with how they do. I think people will be surprised with some of the names that have been rumored to be thrown out there for Marvin Harrison Jr. in a trade for Marv. But I think they would be willing to make that move if that move had become available to him. I think the biggest roadblock to trading for Marvin Harrison Jr. is probably going to be the Raiders. Because if I'm just thinking about Marvin Harrison's skill set and I'm thinking about the perfect quarterback to pair him up with, I can't think of a better name than of all the teams that are looking for a wide receiver right now. I can't think of a better name to pair him up with than Fernando Mendoza, right? I think that Marvin to Mendoza, that will probably be very successful. I could see it being very obvious how successful that could be. And if I'm the Raiders, I'd be willing to spend a lot to go out and get that for my young franchise quarterback, considering like, hey, you got to get this up right for him, right? You've invested a lot in him. You're going to invest the number 1 overall pick. Yeah, you want to address the offensive line, but you also, you want to get him his go-to target. And think about what Mendoza thrived at in Indiana, right? Quick hitters, back shoulders, fade balls, accuracy. That's stuff that will elevate Marv's game because Marv is an elite back shoulder catch guy. He's an elite tiptoe on the sidelines guy, body control guy. He's an elite quick step guy. So if you just do a lot of quick hitters like Mendoza did in college with a guy like Marv, I can see that being very, very enticing. So it might be a situation where the Browns have motivation to do it. I think they certainly would be motivated to make a move for Marv. But I think that a team like the Raiders would be significantly more motivated than them to get a deal done. And that might make the market for this trade get out of the range for the Cleveland Browns. That's the kind of stuff that happens, right, with trades. But that's what's out there. The Browns are certainly sniffing around and looking for wide receivers. Will they end up with a wide receiver? I am not 100% sure. I think there is a lot that needs to be answered before we even get close to knowing if that's going to happen, right? I think we got to get through owners' meetings and see what else is there. There's more to talk about. The possibility of the Browns trading back. Who would they trade back with? I'm going to tell you who my best guess is on who the Browns would trade back with. But real quick, I thank my sponsor, Sleeper. Talk to you guys real quick about Sleeper, the app for daily fantasy, regular fantasy. And now, if you look at the pick section on the Sleeper app and go to the team section, you have predictions that you can now use on the Sleeper app. You can choose winners of games. So let's say you're a Cavs fan, the Cavs play the Wizards or something like that, and you think the Cavs are going to beat the Wizards, you can pick the Cavs to beat the Wizards in that kind of scenario. For me personally, I went with the Cavs getting the championship this year. And of course, I had to throw in the same for the Cleveland Browns winning the next Super Bowl. So if you want to join in the fun on that, make sure you join the Sleeper app. If you also want to use the Sleeper app for all the other things I mentioned, make sure you use the promo code Worst Take. Get a 100% match on up to $100 when you use the promo code Worst Take. Make sure you join the Sleeper app. All right, so there's been a lot of talk about the Browns potentially trading back from 6. I do think there is a scenario that I don't think enough people are thinking about. Maybe I got to do a mock draft scenario if this is to play it out. But I do wonder if there is a world where the Browns trade back their pick from 6 to somewhere in the middle of the first and then trade up from 24 to somewhere in the middle of the first, right? I wonder where the Browns feel like the sweet spot in this draft is as far as talent goes and the quality of talent per pick. And I wonder if they try to get 2 swings in that pool. You know what I mean? So let's say the Browns feel like the best place to be at in this draft value-wise is about 13 to 18. Will the Browns move back to 13 and then trade up from 24 into 17 to get 2 swings there? I think it might be worthwhile if you feel like that's where the sweet spot of the draft is. But the question that most people have been asking has been about what the Browns will do at pick number 6. Will they trade back? I think the Browns, of all the teams sitting there, probably make the most sense to trade back. So let's look at the draft order real quick. We got the Raiders, who aren't going to move, right? I think we're pretty confident the Raiders are not moving. They're already making plans for Mendoza, and they might even trade for Marv to pair with Mendoza, which I think would make a lot of sense here. You got the Jets, who might be willing to move, right? They do need a lot of talent, which normally means they might be willing to move. But there's not been a lot of noise about the Jets being willing to move. The Cardinals, who you would imagine are willing to move, but again, not a lot of noise there. The Titans, who will definitely be open for business. The Giants, who you would think would be open to move, but you're not 100% sure that they're open to move. And then you got the Browns, who are definitely open to move. So if you're a team like Dallas, right? And from what I hear, Dallas really does covet. They really do like Caleb Downs. So if Caleb Downs is there at 6 and they don't think Caleb Downs is going to make it to 12, they might be willing to move up with the Browns. But the real question is, who does Dallas really want in this draft? Do they want Caleb Downs? If they want Caleb Downs, and the Browns make more sense to move up with. If they want Arvell Reese, if they want Sonny Styles, 2 guys who had excellent combines this weekend, you're probably looking at them trying to move up to 4 or even 2 to New York, right? Now, the Cowboys have an extra first next year to burn. And we know what the price is to move up to 2, so they might be willing to move up to 2. But it's going to be real interesting to see what Dallas does, because I think multiple teams in the top 5 are going to be keying in on Dallas as a potential trade-up place. I do wonder with Cincinnati, right? Like, they might be a team really in on Ruben Bain, really in on Arvell Reese, really in on Sonny Styles. I wonder if a team like Cincinnati is going to clog up that trade lane to Tennessee at 4, because they know they can't trade with Cleveland at 6, right? Like, they know that Cleveland's not going to trade with them. But even then, Tennessee, if it's a pass rusher, might just want to take the pass rusher because they really need a pass rusher. So then you're talking about Cincinnati moving up to 3 with Arizona, probably too much there, or maybe 5 with the Giants. But there's going to be a lot of different movement going on, because Cincinnati's going to probably want to move up, but they can't move up to 6 because Cleveland's there and they're not going to trade within division. Baltimore might want to move up, right? They're at 14, but again, not really in the range of the Browns. Well, not really a team that's going to trade with the Browns there at 6. So there's going to be a lot of attention on picks 2 through 4 and how that trade back market goes. And then I wonder, because so many teams are either trying to move up or move back, that if that pick at 24 could easily become a trade with New York at 16, you know what I mean? To move up a few spots to double dip in that part of the draft that people feel like might be the most value in the draft. There's a lot to think about here. There's a lot of news out there about what the Browns are looking at, what they're interested in. It's important to keep in mind, some of this stuff is out here for reasons that we can't really put together right now, that might not be directly related to what it feels like it's related to when this news drops, like for whatever reason, maybe a team is trying to really make it seem like the Browns are interested in Marvin Harrison because they're trying to free up something else from somebody else. It happens all the time. The Combine is a place like that. But also remember at the Combine last year, when people were still iffy on if Cam Ward was going to go number one, by the end of the Combine, we were confident that Cam Ward was 100% going number one overall. So you do find out stuff, and some of this smoke is not just smoke. It's real fire. So you just got to keep your ear to the ground and stay level-headed with everything that you hear. But that's what I've heard so far. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Everybody have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.